Greetings, listeners. I wrapped up the podcast yesterday. Zane and I wrapped up the podcast. We had Chris Haworth on, and I was kind of thinking, I enjoy episodes like this because we're basically just talking pickle with a guy who's really good at it. And I probably said a lot less than I usually do. And Zane kind of carried the episode. So it was nice to just sit back and listen to it. But as I was sort of reviewing it in my mind, I realized that I think it lacked a little bit of context. We know who Chris is because we're plugged in, but I'm not sure everybody really does. So I wanted to give you a little more background on who he is and kind of tee up this episode. So Chris is one of those pros who's seemingly burst onto the scene, but you'll hear him say he's been playing for 2 years and pro for almost 1 year. So to him, it feels like he's been grinding for a while, and now he's just seeing the results. He was a blue chip tennis recruit out of high school. He won 3 state championships, which is crazy. He played tennis at Oklahoma State and then took a 9-to-5 job out of college before being like, all right, I think I could make a run at pro tennis. And he talks about what made him kind of make that change. But after that, he ended up just being a tennis coach. And then eventually he found pickleball, right? He's definitely a single specialist. And most fans, I would say, really took notice of him when he upset Ben Johns at Nationals in Dallas in 2023 when he was using one of those gearboxes. Not the gearbox power, though. I think it's kind of important to mention, especially after last episode with Jill. But this year alone now, he has 8 medals. Okay, so 2 on the PPA, 1 gold, 1 silver in singles, 5 on the APP, 4 gold, 1 bronze, and then 1 U.S. Open silver. At the PPA Orange County Cup, he had wins over Ben Johns, Fed Staksrud, Yates Johnson, Dylan Frazier, Grayson Goldine, who apparently is one of his buddies, and we'll talk more about that. And he just had an epic run on his way to his first PPA gold. So it's pretty clear that he's not just some guy who's going to grind the, singles APP circuit. Like, he seems like a real contender to be a force on the single side, but like most of these guys who come in and girls who come in as single specialists, they want to be double specialists. They want to be great doubles players too, right? And so I think he's kind of in the middle of that transition. At the Orange County Cup, he finished 10th in men's doubles with Grayson Goldine, who I already mentioned. So to me, it's like, okay, he's one of those guys who comes from a tennis background, took a desk job, said, screw it, let's make a run at pro tennis. That didn't work, started coaching tennis, and then he found pickleball. He's surged into the spotlight lately in singles, and now he's grinding the double circuit, which seems to be his priority. So he says he doesn't even train singles anymore other than like drop feeds and only trains doubles. So to me, he's just an interesting guy. I wonder, a year from now, are we going to be having a conversation about him, winning gold in doubles too, right? Will he get drafted into Major League Pickleball? Could he get picked up this season? I think all that's on the table. So for me, this episode was just cool to talk to a guy who's like that, who has a great backstory. And we just kind of chatted pickle. I think like the first maybe 20 minutes or so, we do kind of just do like the whole, what's your backstory thing. But then we end up just chopping it up about the technical side of the game, strategies, and, what it's like going up against the best of the best. So I think you guys will enjoy this episode. I wanted to add that context because he is kind of newer on the scene. And then before we get into it, the only other thing I wanted to mention was if you are a Pickleball Box subscriber, we were kind of blown away by the response to that. And the orders just kept coming in. And we frankly didn't plan for it. So we're backed up on inventory. We are on a 2-week shipping delay. But we're working around the clock. We're trying to get everything restocked so we can get the Pickleball Box out to you as soon as possible. And if you're interested in buying one or checking it out, go to the dink.shop. That's all I got. Enjoy the episode. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, and we're live. Chris, welcome to the Pickle Pod.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's do this. Let's first things first, as usual. Can you pronounce your last name for me,
Haworth.
please?
Chris Haworth.
Okay.
Haworth.
All right. That's what I would have gone with,
Yeah,
but I've been hearing some
funny when
interesting
people look at it,
takes.
they like say Haworth, and then when they spell it, they add the Y and say Haworth. So usually they're wrong, but it's Chris Haworth.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right. We can deal with that. And you're in Oklahoma City,
Yep.
right?
Oklahoma City, born and raised. Yep.
Someone was just asking me, what's the pickleball like in Oklahoma City? When we were driving the Dink van through the country, we stopped in Oklahoma City and played with Grant Bond, actually.
Yeah.
But it had one of the first chicken and pickles, so there's
Yeah, I
clearly
think it was like the second or
some
third
density
little
there.
chicken and pickle. There's a huge pickleball scene here. Like, there's a ton of people that play. All the clubs are like fully packed. They're like building new facilities all the time. There's not very many pros. It's me, and then Jenna Hessert is the other pro that lives here. I don't know if you know her, but yeah. Other than that, it's a lot of like amateur players. There's a few 5-0s, a lot of like 3-0 to 4-0 players. So we make it work here, though.
Gotcha.
Got it.
Well,
Okay.
you are you're grinding away and you're winning a lot of matches. And
Yeah.
so whatever you've been doing at Chicken and Pickle in Oklahoma City has been working. Last
Yeah.
tournament you beat Ben and Fed pretty unanimously the 1 and 2. And last time we had done a power ranking, we had them in a league of their own.
Yeah.
And then 7 or 8 guys right in that second tier. So what clicked? How you take us through that?
So, I mean, I don't get the opportunity to play those guys very often. I play a full APP schedule. I'm sure we might talk about that in a little bit. But so I know when I get to play PPA, I kind of have to maximize my opportunities, take advantage. So, I believe in myself. I believe in my game. So when I go into the matches, I think that I can win. I think if you go into a match, thinking that it's going to be close or thinking, they might have a little bit of an edge over you, I think you'll probably end up losing that match. So, I go in thinking I'm going to win, and that's what happened those matches. I know if we played 10 times, it might be split, or I don't know what the result would be, but I definitely believe in myself when I go into it.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
how
how
long
would
have you
you-
Oh, whoa,
Go ahead.
Zane, come on, dude. It's my turn.
Hey, you told me I needed a carry, so here I am trying to carry.
Well, I don't even remember my question. So Zane, you go ahead while I think of whatever I was going to say. I'm sure it was brilliant.
So, Chris, how would you describe your style? Because it seems a little bit different than the current meta and the way that Ben and Fed and a lot of others are playing.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely play like a tennis style. I came from a tennis background, obviously. So when I play singles, like I know in my head that the point can be ended with any shot. So I kind of go into every point like that. Even if I'm in trouble, like I might go for a ball that maybe you shouldn't go for, but I know the risk pays off a lot of the time. So I just kind of try to rip balls by people. If I get a ball in the midcourt, I'm going to try to pass someone. If I can get to the net, I try to get to the net. But definitely a power game for sure.
Mm-hmm. And your ground strokes, I think we actually had this conversation at the lab the other day. I was playing a baseline game with somebody or another where the entire court is a kitchen. Basically, it's like tennis style. It's baseline only singles. And I was like, who in the world would be the absolute best at this game?
Yeah.
And I thought Chris Haworth.
Yeah, I would own that game.
How have you gotten so just like grooved on your passing shots so quickly?
Yeah, so when I played tennis, I was a baseliner. I'm a pretty tall guy. I'm like 6'4", so you would think I had like big serve, big ground strokes, and I had the big ground strokes, but I didn't have the big serve. So college tennis, my coach told me, and he was like, if you had a big serve, I feel like you would maybe be not in college, you'd be on the tour. So pickleball is really the perfect scenario for me because it takes the serve out of play and just uses all my strengths. So, the ground strokes just come from tennis, I would say.
Gotcha. Do you like, are you doing anything special training them while you're back at home in Oklahoma City?
Yeah, I do a lot of drop feeds. So I hit a lot of just dead balls. I'll hit, an hour a day of just 30 minutes forehands, 30 minutes backhand, someone just dropping the ball on me, trying to create different spins or go to different places on the court. That's mainly my singles practice. Other than that, I'm mostly practicing doubles. I know the results in doubles haven't come, but that's mostly what I'm practicing.
Yeah, and you can club the ball like that. Like they're coming relatively soon. And I like you. I really like you partnering up with Grayson, which we'll get to as well.
Yeah, that'll be exciting.
So do you think in a world where we're playing baseline only pickleball and you cannot volley, you think you're number one?
Yeah, so I watch a lot of women's singles too. I'm like, man, I wish that men's singles was like this. I would love to get in some like 10, 15 ball baseline rallies. Yeah, that
For
would
sure.
definitely be my groove for sure.
All right, so who's number 2 behind Chris Haworth
Oh,
in
God.
baseline only singles?
I mean, Fed and Ben they're so consistent. They don't have the baseline strokes, but they play a lot of cat and mouse. So I don't know. I gotta say my boy Grayson. I mean, I know he's up and coming, but his ground strokes are next level also. We played a few matches. We played a couple of APP finals, and we're both just ripping the ball from the baseline.
Yeah, interesting. I want to put together a tournament like that.
Yeah.
Singles tournament,
Sign me up.
baseline only.
Let me know.
I think it would be so entertaining. I actually think the points would be wild.
Yeah, so me and Fed had a couple of baseline points actually. I was loving those.
Nice. Nice. Tommy, you figure out what you wanted to say?
Yeah, no, I just want to ask, how long have you considered yourself a pro?
So I played pickleball for 2 years, like almost exactly. I started like in October 2022, so pretty much 2 years ago. I quit my job in August of last year, so that's when I would consider myself a full-time pro. I was training full-time, kind of dedicating my whole life to it. So I would say right out a year.
Got it. Okay,
Gotcha.
August 2023.
Yeah.
So
What were you doing before that?
I was coaching tennis. I was the director of a junior tennis academy. So we had a lot of like high performance level players, they're playing tournaments every week and traveling. So it was really tough for me to balance pickleball with that. Obviously pickleball tournaments are on the weekend. So when I was traveling with kids, it was hard for me to make every tournament. So that's kind of why I had to make the choice to go full time.
got it. Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of guys around the country who are pretty good at pickleball, probably played some college tennis, are good athletes. They feel like, okay, I'm a little better than most. At what point for you does it click where you're like, maybe I could actually make a run at this thing?
Yeah. So for me personally, like I said, I was kind of playing part-time tournaments. My first PPA tournament ever was February of 2023, I guess. So kind of earlier on in that year, I made it through qualifying. I played Ben first round and I split sets. And that was like my first experience of a tournament. So, right away I knew I could compete at that level. And then playing a tournament once every 3 months is tough. So that's why I think it's so hard to break through in pickleball, because you kind of have to make that choice whether, I'm going to dedicate my whole life to this, or am I going to keep working and do it part-time? Because, part-time players, it's hard to win right now. I think everyone's training so hard. So I think just the couple of results that I had made me think that I could do it and just willing to commit.
Yeah. If you take a set off Ben, I feel like immediately you're like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I was glad I got the opportunity to play him. When I saw the draw, I was like, dang, I don't want to play him first round, but that's the best way to measure your game and measure your level for sure.
Right. You're 30 years old?
31.
31.
I'm getting up there.
Welcome, brother.
Yeah,
welcome to the
exactly.
30s. Zane, you're 28?
Yeah. Still got another couple of years.
Yeah, you're young.
If he's dirty, he's dirty. That's what I always say.
I feel like there's a lot of guys that don't play singles because they're like 30 plus. And they're like, oh, I'm too old to play singles. I'm like, man, it's just a thought. You got to get out there and grind it.
Yeah, you must take good care of your body though. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
the singles miles add up very, very quickly.
That's been a big change with me. So like, obviously when I was playing tennis 8 years ago, like I took good care of my body, but coaching, you're not really able to. You're on court all day and you kind of eat bad and like don't really work out. So once I considered myself a full-time pro, that was something I really dedicated a lot of my time to. So right now I'd say I'm like 50% like trying to get more fit, trying to eat better, have my fitness level up, and then 50% practicing. So it's definitely a big part for me being 31.
Yeah. So a question that I have, and something that I did when I was becoming a more serious pro pickleball player, was I was living in Racine, Wisconsin, or Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I kind of outgrew my competition in that area. I moved down to Austin and I love it there. Like, how long do you see yourself in Oklahoma City? Do you think you can make it work?
Yeah,
Do you have to move to a pickleball hub to be a
I thought
pro?
about moving, to Austin. Austin's obviously like a drivable city from Oklahoma City, but even when I was graduating college, like I'm really close with my family. I love Oklahoma City. I lived here my whole life. I told myself I wasn't willing to move for a career. And I know that's a personal choice a lot of people make. So whether I was in, finance or, whatever industry I'm in, like I don't think I'd be willing to move to a different state for a job. I think, I care about being home and close to family. So I kind of see pickleball as the same. Like if if that's what it takes to be number one in the world to move away. Like, I don't know if that's something that I'm willing to do at this point. Obviously that might change in the future, but for right now, I'm definitely in Oklahoma City for the long haul.
Damn. Well, tell mom, dad, brother, sister,
Right?
everybody, like, we're going to Austin.
Yeah, I know. So, I thought about doing like little training blocks, maybe renting like an apartment for a month or 2 months throughout a summer in Austin or, somewhere in Florida, but it hasn't happened yet. I don't know that it won't happen in the future, but yeah, I don't have any plans as of now.
Well, open invite. We've got each other's info now, so that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'll take you up on that.
For sure.
Yeah.
So have you seen any market change in singles over the last 6 months or so, particularly since we've actually switched at the PPA level to a Vulcan ball?
I mean, I've only been in pro pickleball for a year, so I feel like things change so often. Every 2 months, I feel like there's something drastic, and at first, I don't feel like I was really in the know of those changes. And even now, I'm kind of just trying to keep my head down and worry about myself and not really worrying about, I'm worried about growing the games. So I don't know. I don't want to put it that way, but I'm really just worried about getting better. And singles is obviously my strength. I would love for singles to be as valued as doubles in pickleball, and I think maybe eventually with the athleticism of all the players, it will be. But I know right now it's not. So anything I can do to grow that, I would love to.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? I mean, I for a long time, singles has always been on the worst time frame.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Usually it's the first match on Championship Sunday, and it's played on Thursday. Right. Like, so people say, well, people don't watch. Well, do they not really watch singles, or are you sticking singles in the worst possible times?
Yeah, and I think the idea is that people don't play singles. When you go to your local club, everyone is playing doubles, and I definitely recognize that. But coming from tennis, and I taught tennis for 6 or 7 years, when you go to your local country club or your local club, you watch 3-5 ladies, they're not playing singles either. I mean, tennis is a very doubles-focused sport at the amateur level also. But they all know singles players at Wimbledon, they're not watching Wimbledon doubles, they're watching singles. So I don't know why the connection hasn't happened in pickleball yet. I think maybe just how quick the game is has something to do with it. But like I said, I would love for pickleball to, focus a little bit more on singles.
Yeah, I think your style and seeing the guys hitting some more of those baseline rallies, I think that'll certainly certainly help.
Yeah, I think the shorter points, I have something to do with it. My style, especially, like you said, I would love to be doing baseline rallies, but when people are coming in, like, I'm going for my passing shot. So it's either a winner or I'm missing. Hopefully I'm making more than I'm missing, but either way, the point's over in 3 or 4 shots.
Mm-hmm. True. So do you work with a coach?
Yeah, so I'm actually at my coach's house right now. There's a pickleball court in the background. I was hoping to face it, but the lighting wasn't working out for us. So yeah, I have a coach in Edmond, and she's actually the one that got me started in pickleball. I used to give her tennis lessons, and she'd played pickleball for several years before that. She kind of told me about the career opportunities and, thought that my skill set would transfer over. So we've switched roles, and now she coaches me, and I work with her, most days of the week, and she tries to travel as much as she can. But yeah, I try to get on court with her a lot.
Nice. So she's the one who's doing drop feeds and whatnot.
Drop feeds all day long.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Now, is she giving you strategy tips, technique tips? Like,
yeah,
what is this?
A little bit of both. Obviously, when I first started, it was a little bit more technique and how the differences, from tennis to pickleball are. Now it's a lot more strategy. It's a lot of mental. I think singles is really tough mentally. You can, the highs are high and the lows are lows. You can really not feel great out there. So during a tournament, it's mostly mental. When we're here, it's a little bit more technical, though.
So this might be a dumb question, but like, what made her qualified, and why did you trust this person with your game, right?
Yeah, she played a lot of senior pro, and she had a lot of success there. But I didn't really look at that. I looked more about personality and how we connect with each other on the court. And, the conversations we're able to have on the court and the banter. I think that's what it takes for like a professional level coach. Even on the tennis side, I think. There's a lot of people that know technique, but the people that you can connect with and go back and forth with and, problem solve, I think that's the biggest thing for a coach right now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's a strange spot for coaching, right? Because in every other sport, coaching is a huge thing. In
Yeah.
pickleball, it's not. And I'm personally certainly open to coaching. I struggle with, how do I know that this person is going to be smarter in this than me,
Yeah.
right? Like, I've
I
been
think
playing for.
I think
Oh,
that
go ahead.
most sports, the coaches come from professional players, where, in pickleball, we don't have that. There was no professional game 10 years ago. So, yeah, I think it's a different look than like professional tennis or any other professional sport, where you kind of have to develop the relationships more.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to change. I mean, you're already seeing some players like Kyle McKenzie, Morgan Evans, even Adam Stone a little bit.
Yeah.
Sort of switching over to the coaching roles, and I think we're going to see more of that. I'm sure I'm also missing a couple other people.
Yeah.
But I would struggle personally just thinking that maybe it's just because I'm an asshole, but I would think I know more than most people.
Yeah.
Which, I think it is good always to have a fresh set of eyes, at least somebody to suggest something. And I'm sure, if your coach started telling you that you need to switch to a one-handed backhand, that might be something that you might ignore, given that your two-handed backhand is money.
Yeah,
but
I think that's why it's more mental right now in pickleball for coaching. For myself at least, like there's only so many, especially on the singles side, there's only so many strategies you can use. So having someone that's able to calm you down and just lock you in, I think that's super important.
Mm-hmm. So is this something that you would be willing to share? Do you have anything interesting that you do in that regard to get you into what you feel like is your ideal mental state?
Yeah, I mean, it's not anything super interesting, and you can probably see it on the court. I try to stay pretty level. I think when I get super high on emotions, then I don't play well, and when I'm super low on emotions, I don't play well. So for me, like staying right in that middle zone is really important. I kind of have like a 5-second rule. So after a point, like you can get pissed for 5 seconds or you can celebrate for 5 seconds, but after that, you kind of have to think about the next point and lock in. So that's something that I really try to do in my singles matches.
I like that a lot.
Yeah,
I think that could help both of the Dink podcast hosts. Oh, there it is. Look at that, Thomas.
Tifosi.
Oh, there it is. I got him this time.
Tifosi is the Italian word for superfan, and that is exactly who they make their eyewear for. Tifosi Optics designs sunglasses that allow you to get out and live your passion. Tifosi Glide technology allows the frame to slide on comfortably and provide an anti-bounce fit with an integrated hinge, ensuring these sunglasses slide on easily without pulling your hair. Crafted from shatterproof polycarbonate, these lenses not...
Let's see, are they shatterproof?
You gotta hit me.
I did.
Thank God I was wearing my Tifosi. These lenses not only reduce glare, but also offer scratch resistance, ensuring unparalleled eye protection. Hydrophilic rubber nose pads that increase grip. The more you sweat, so glasses will stay secure during even the most intense activities. Shop now at TifosiOptics.com and save 20% with code DINK20. That's all caps, DINK20. TifosiOptics.com.
So if you're playing, we talked a little bit about whether or not it's Bush League to play with a Yola Gen 3. If your opponents are playing Bush League with a Yola Gen 3, you got to wear eye protection. Tifosi, look at that. Thomas?
Tifosi.
Oh, there it is. I got him this time. I hope the camera was on you for that. There we go. Great option,
Tifosi.
Regardless of which paddle you're playing against. Tifosi. Olokai, a Hawaiian-inspired lifestyle brand best known for their insanely comfortable sandals. Pickleball shoes that are actually for pickleball. The Anau is designed specifically for the pickleball with a focus on airy breathability, lateral stability, multi-directional traction, and comfort both on and off the court. They feature a non-marking sole for indoor and outdoor pickleball courts with a design inspired by cauliflower coral that is found throughout Hawaii's ocean waters. The purchase of every Olokai product gives back to Hawaiian nonprofits. Visit the link in the description and try a pair for yourself. They kind of came out of nowhere in the pickleball scene. I started seeing them all over Instagram, and the stuff looks pretty cool. Like, it's some coralish color, like they mentioned, cauliflower coral. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I think the navy shoes are pretty cool. There's not many pickleball shoes I'd actually wear. These ones are actually pretty stylish.
So you sort of, I would say, like burst onto the scene, on the full scene, when you did end up beating Ben for the first time in Dallas.
Yeah.
But had you won the APP New York previous to that, or
No, that was
that this year?
No, so I didn't have any golds on APP or PPA until 2024. So like I said, I turned full-time pro in August of last year. And when I beat Ben was in November. So I was super fresh into it still, but it had been a couple months, yeah.
That was kind of right in the middle of the launch of the new gearbox paddle during that time,
it was
which
the same
you
week, actually.
did not use, correct? You didn't
So I
use
used the control. I didn't use the pro power. I used the pro control. The power for me, I hit the ball pretty hard, so it was a little bit too much. I'd hit a clean shot and it would go 3 or 4 feet out. But yeah, I used the control of that match that I beat Ben, and it was a good paddle for me.
And then you made the switch to Babolat. Take us through that.
Yeah, so April of this year, I had been using it in practice for a couple months to make sure that was the one I wanted. So yeah, April this year, I was their first signed pickleball player, and that was a huge opportunity for me. Obviously, they're trying to really break into the market. I know they'd had some paddles before, but they kind of were testing it then, and I think now they're ready to go full force. And it's obviously a great paddle for me, and hopefully they continue to grow.
It is cool to see them making an actually good paddle. And you can't say this, but I can. Their paddles kind of sucked before, which was disappointing.
Yeah.
I used Babolat tennis rackets. I loved them. Obviously, I was a Pure Drive guy, but so I loved the tennis rackets, and they came in and they made paddles that just didn't stick out.
I think before they didn't really put.
Way.
I don't know that they put a ton of thought into it before. It was kind of when pickleball was first starting to blow up, so they just kind of released the paddles. But the line that came out this year, they really put a lot of research into. Travis from R&D, he does a great job, and they came out with some really great paddles. There's 3 good paddles in the line right now.
Yeah. So it's not a paddle that has quite yet a lot of talk about it, right?
Yeah.
That paddle talk has been dominated recently by the Yolas, the Gearbox, even some of the Paddle Tech stuff, with their new launch being very poppy. Like, how would you describe your paddle? And I swear to God, if you say power, spin, and control, this podcast is over.
I mean, it's obviously a power paddle. I'm not really into the paddle technology of everything. I kind of just use what feels good. So I don't know all the tech that goes into it. But it's a power paddle with good spin, like you just said. It works well for me, and I think paddles are such a personal choice. There's a lot of good paddles on the market from each company, really. But, when I look at the whole market, you look at some of these pickleball-specific companies, and then you look at a company like Babolat or Wilson, or I know Dunlop is coming with some paddles. I just think that how big the companies are. I mean, Babolat's celebrating 150 years this year. I mean, once they really dive fully into the pickleball market, I just feel like, they're going to crush it. It's just whether they're willing to take that risk and jump in it right now.
Yeah, that'll be exciting to see.
Yeah.
A lot of these brands have just sort of dipped their toe in the water, right? Wilson, Babolat until now.
Yeah.
Had made a little bit more of a push.
Yeah.
Prince was in pickleball at one time.
I used Prince my full junior tennis career, so I'm sad I missed out.
Really?
I'm happy. I love Babolat, but yeah, I was a Prince guy when I played tennis.
Gotcha. Well, we have a question from Facebook as well.
Okay.
But you have 2 questions. First off, what model do you play with?
I play with the Babolat Striker. It's the power series of the lineup. There's 3: the Striker, the Baller, and the Wizard. And they're actually all 3 essentially the same paddle, but just different thicknesses. So it's really easy to go back and forth if that's something that you ever wanted to do. But mine is a 13, the Baller is a 16, and the Wizard's a 20. But they're all composed of the same material. So it's just whether you want that control or that power. But I use the Striker.
20 millimeter.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, it is.
That I don't think I've ever seen anything thicker than like 18 millimeters.
Yeah, I think the Lux is 20 also.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. So I wouldn't. Yeah, if you're playing singles, I don't know that I would ever really recommend a 20 millimeter paddle. But if you're just a doubles only kind of guy, then yeah, it's a good paddle.
I didn't realize that was 20 millimeters because it doesn't have the edge guard on it, so
it makes
it doesn't look
better.
quite as
Actually, a lot of people think that mine's actually 13. So when people watch me play or they see it like as I'm walking by, they think it's like 10 or 12. Yeah, but it's a little thicker because it doesn't have that edge guard.
Gotcha. So Clayton Edwards from Facebook
From
wants
Oklahoma
to
City.
know when the. Oh, is that one of your boys?
Yeah, like he's a Babolat guy. Yeah, I don't play with him that often, but yeah, I know he's from Oklahoma City.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, he wants to know when the Haworth signature is coming out.
Man, I hope next year. I got to get a couple more wins. Maybe a couple more PPA titles will get me that signature.
There you go. Now, do you think Babolat would do that? Like, they don't even have signatures necessarily for tennis, did they? Like,
no, they
Rafa Nadal had the.
Rafa obviously he developed the pure arrow, I think is what it's called now. But but I don't really know that that's a thing for tennis. I don't know that very many people have like a signature tennis racket. I wouldn't say for pickleball it seems more of a trend.
For sure.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah.
Well, any thoughts you have?
Do what?
Why do you think that is? Tennis versus
I don't know.
pickleball.
I thought it. I honestly, when I started playing pickleball, I thought it was kind of weird. I like picked up the paddle and it like had someone's name on it, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. And also, like as a player, like especially a pro player, like I wouldn't want to use a paddle that has like a competitor's name on it. Like if I'm playing, like I don't want to be playing with the Zane paddle. That would be.
No, that's wrong. Already. You want to play with his paddle and you want to beat him with his own paddle.
Yeah, that's better.
Kind of disrespect.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah,
that's true. That's my paddle now. Yeah, but at the same time in tennis, right? You had Federer with his racket that was basically the Federer signature. Right. You had Nadal with the green Babolat that was essentially his racket.
Yeah,
Djokovic with that head racket, like everybody associated that one with him. Like these guys are all kind of associated with those paddles, even if they don't necessarily have their name on it.
Yeah.
But we all got to throw names on them in pickleball.
Yeah, exactly. It just makes you feel a little bit better. I also think pickleball, I've heard the term like we're all fighting for crumbs. So it's like, to get your name on a paddle, that's a huge step forward in the industry for whoever that is. So that'd obviously be something super special if it happened for me.
All right, Chris. So you kind of had a prolific college tennis career, okay, or high school tennis career.
High school tennis,
and then college, right? Okay, so I'm gonna read through some of this stuff.
Okay,
because it's pretty impressive. All right, so you were a blue chip tennis recruit. You were ranked 6th in the nation amongst players 18 and under. You were 15-6 against other blue chip recruits. You're combined 28-4 against 3, 4, and 5-star recruits.
Okay.
You won 3 state championships with a career record of 105. You won All-American, All-State Player of the Year, All-American Player of the Year, and 3 times All-City Player of the Year. And then you spent your senior year full-time at a tennis academy.
Yeah.
And you're pretty much doing like homeschool at that point, right?
Yeah. I haven't heard those listed off in a while, but when you list them off all at once, it sounds pretty cool. Obviously in the moment, it just kind of feels like what you're supposed to be doing and you're just playing matches. But the 105 record in high school, that always kind of gets me because it was, high school tennis in Oklahoma is not the strongest. I hate to say that, not to put anyone down if I played you in high school, but it definitely wasn't the most impressive stat at the time because I felt like I wasn't beating that good of players. But all the other ones, it was a great career, and I love tennis, and I still keep up with it. College tennis was a lot of fun for me. I played at Oklahoma State, and I feel like that was a great chapter. And I coached tennis for a long time, and when I was finishing coaching, I kind of started to dislike the game a little bit. Unfortunately, just because you do it for so long. I played tennis for over 20 years, so pickleball came in at the perfect time for me, and it was like a breath of fresh air. And to be able to do something similar where your skill set translates, that was huge for me. So I'm addicted to pickleball now. Tennis was great, but it's all in the past.
Yeah, and you had a pro run for a little bit. So were you super focused on that? Was that kind of like, let me try and see how it goes,
Yeah.
or were you going like full bore, let's try and make a
Yeah,
career
so
out
I
of it?
actually, out of college, I worked a traditional desk job for a year, and it was a job where we had to clock in 8 hours a day, but the workload was probably 4 or 5 hours a day, unfortunately. And so I would spend my last couple hours of the day always looking up tennis stats and looking up these like lower level pro tournaments, and I would see all these guys. I'm like, oh, I beat them in juniors, or like I know I can compete with them. So I quit my desk job and tried to do pro tennis for a year, and I went full force with it. And yeah, it's just so hard. There's so many tennis players in the world, and the travel is crazy. And right now with pickleball, we're traveling nationally all over the country, but tennis, you got to travel all over the world, so the expenses add up really quick.
Yeah. All right, and you're 6'4", so I just want to get your take as a fellow tall guy. I'm like
Oh, give me a break.
like 6'5". Uh, how do you think, like, what advantage do you think height awards you in pickleball, if any at all? I think there's a lot of people who serve as like a counterpoint to height matters in pickleball, and I don't think there's really like a definitive answer on whether being tall is better or not. But like, what's your take on that?
I think in singles, height is huge. I mean, I can get to the kitchen in 3 steps, and I talked to someone last week about it. I've been working on my fitness, like I said, so I feel like I've become half a step quicker. So now I'm getting to the kitchen in essentially 2.5 steps. Uh, in singles, it's huge. I mean, in my wingspan, I can reach both sides of the court. In doubles, however, like I don't think it's a huge advantage. I think if I was a couple inches shorter, I would not necessarily be playing better doubles, but I think it's better for the game. You can get at your body. It's really tough to defend when you're that tall, and just moving like those little lateral movements. Yeah, so I would say like double 6'1" is the perfect height. Maybe single 6'4" is working out well for me.
Zane, what's your take on that? Do you think it's better to be taller?
Yeah, I think it's better to be tall. As a short king, I think it's better to be tall. Singles for sure. I think singles is a little bit more cut and dry
Yeah.
on that. But just because of the wingspan, the biggest advantage in singles is no matter how fast somebody is, no matter how fast their feet are, somebody can always reach their arm out faster, right? A reach is always going to be faster than moving your feet. And so it really comes into play on basically defending the third shot, right? Like somebody like myself or Jaume or Hayden, Connor even, Connor's a little taller than me. Like we really struggle, Frank Anthony Davis, we really struggle when somebody just rips a good passing shot on the third. There's pretty much nothing we can do to defend that. I feel like once the point gets started, like once that third is neutralized, we're very strong. But we're never going to be able to cover the court quite as well as an athletic tall player. I do think it's an advantage in doubles as well. I think it just takes a little bit more work to utilize that advantage. So the biggest thing again being the reach. This time it's not necessarily about the lateral reach, it's more about the reach in towards the kitchen, which is usually one of the last skills to develop for pickleball players, right? Learning how to use our reach as effectively as possible up at the kitchen. There are disadvantages, right? You're a bigger target for sure. But I just think about my experience basically dinking to a Jeff Warnick or a James Ignatowicz or a Deckel, right? These guys all do a really good job of reaching into the kitchen. And so if you have to dink to them, you have to basically give them a dead dink. And if you're only giving somebody a dead dink, well, then they are basically in control of that point. So I think it's definitely an advantage, I think, in doubles over the long haul. It's an advantage that you have to really work on cultivating, I think.
Yeah. So do you think
So
there's a height
anyway,
that's too tall? Like when you look at someone like John Isner and he's, almost 7 feet tall, he can reach almost to the net from the kitchen, but it's tough when he gets jammed in his body. Do you think that's a disadvantage?
yeah, that's a very interesting
I mean,
question.
that's an example, obviously, but
Right, for sure. But I like this. This is a good conversation. I think that's a very good question. Is there a too tall? Um, I would say I'd like to see it because I think naturally at that height, people in general start to lose a little bit of coordination,
yeah.
right? It happens to be that's just generally how it is. Like, the taller somebody is, they're generally not quite as coordinated. So if you look at somebody like a Daniil Medvedev, right, who is about 6'6" ish,
Yeah.
right, but he still has phenomenal coordination with those wonky strokes that he's got too. Like, I would say he's definitely not too tall, but somebody like Isner is, right? And Daniil Medvedev in tennis just has such great mobility. Like, I have great confidence that he could put his palms to the ground if he needed to, right? Like, he's super, super mobile. John's not, right? Or at least it doesn't look like it. So, I mean, we have an example of somebody that I think would be phenomenal at a 6'6" height. 6'10" maybe is too much, but maybe he just doesn't know how to use it quite yet. Also, his style in tennis isn't a style that does translate phenomenally. Him and Query were serve and bomb the forehand, right? And that was more or less it. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think do you think there is a too tall?
I mean, I think when I watch Isner, I feel like he's too tall, but I don't know how much time he puts into it. I know he loves playing, but I don't think he's training like a full schedule. So I don't know if he developed that comfort, if it would be an advantage or not. But yeah, it's definitely something interesting to think about.
What I would like to see to put that hypothesis to the test would be a 7-foot tall tennis player that doesn't win points from their serve, but rather wins it from ground strokes.
I mean, if you're top in the world and you're 7 feet tall, that's, you're winning from your serve, I would imagine.
So naturally, when that's your huge strength, other things sort of atrophy, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have 7-foot players grinding backhands and grinding ground strokes, right?
You have to.
So you don't have to.
Yeah.
Right. And so if somebody was 7 foot and they came in and were only playing pickleball, maybe we'll see it with CJ Klinger. Who knows? He's 18. Yeah. He's like 6'5"
He's
now.
A beast.
But he's like, I just wonder if that is because they never really had to do some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Volleys are usually kind of a sitter for them.
Yeah.
Too. Like, if Isner's coming up to the net, like, he's coming up to the net because he has an absolute duck.
Yeah. And I think that guys, this is my hot take, but I think that guys that had good volleys in tennis are not good pickleball players for the most part because they're too comfortable cutting the volleys. Like, my style in tennis, I came to the net, only when I had to. I didn't want to be up there. So when I started playing pickleball, I'm more comfortable rolling the volleys, which is, what you should do, especially in singles. So I think I don't have those bad habits coming from tennis, but I still have the stroke. So like a serve and volleyer in tennis, I don't think he's going to be a great pickleball player.
Anyway. All right.
Yeah,
with the... go ahead, Zane.
Go ahead. Well, I think Jack Stock is potentially a counter to that argument. Like, he had unbelievable hands, but he had somewhat untraditional volleys.
Yeah, and that's also like one of the most athletic guys in the world, I feel like, from tennis. Like him and Nate Kyrgios, I think, are exceptions to any rule, I would say.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, Thomas, go ahead.
Well, it could be part of the reason that, like, Sam Querrey wasn't as successful, right? He's 6'6", so he could be an example of one of those guys who, yeah, he can have a big serve, rip ground strokes all day, but as soon as he's at the net and he needs more touch, finesse, it's not as much of an advantage. But keeping with kind of like talking more on the technical side of pickleball, right? Zane, you mentioned dead dinks. I don't think everybody knows what that is. Describe what a dead dink is, and then talk about, the types of dinks you should be hitting to avoid, delivering a dead dink to your opponent.
Yeah. So the way that I teach it is basically there's two types of dinks. There's an offensive dink and there's a defensive dink. And there's in betweens as well. But I think of an offensive dink being you're trying to move your opponent around, trying to create something, trying to maybe push them off of the line. And I think of a defensive dink or a dead dink as basically a reset. You're resetting the dink rally and trying to make it short in the kitchen so that your opponent can't necessarily attack you. So if you keep the ball short in the kitchen, players generally, based on the angle, have to hit up a little bit more, but it's an easy ball. So you can maneuver the ball around pretty well when your opponent gives you that defensive or dead dink. So what I see when I see players up to the 4-5 level, they just hit every dink the same without any context for where am I on the court, what's my balance like, where are my opponents. Every dink is just a dink. Once you get to 4-5, 5-0 plus level, you need to start having some more intentionality with your dink shots where, okay, somebody's giving me a really hard shot. Like, yes, it's a dink, but I'm not going to try and shoot it all the way cross court and inch over the net and into the corner. So dead dink, summarized, is basically just a defensive dink that you're not taking a whole lot of risk on, but you're trying to sort of neutralize or reset the point.
So as someone, I'm obviously trying to get better at doubles myself. I'm interested to hear your answer to this question. Would you say that you would rather have someone that hits, 50 dead dinks in a row without missing, or would you rather be able to hit 10 like offensive style dinks, and possibly miss that 11th or 12th one? Which would you say would be a better advantage?
Yeah, I think it's situational, right? If you are playing against two players that have a lot of reach, the player who's used to really working the dinks and being very offensive with them, if you're too offensive with your dink, well, now all of a sudden it's an easy backhand flip, right? So you kind of have to, it's a bad answer, but you have to have both.
Yeah.
I would say the way that the game is progressing with a lot more offense, we don't have quite as many of the same long, extended, grind them out dink rallies. You get them every once in a while still, like definitely, especially when you're watching Ben and Colin play. Like they're the best at that. J-Dub and Dylan, they are the best at that because they want you to speed up at them. They don't care. They'll give you a dead dink. They want that pace. I think with those couple of players being the exception, and they're the number 1 and 2 teams in the world, the dinking is getting much, much more offensive, right? If you're not creating with a dink, the way that the other players are going to create back. So I think that's a trend. So I'd say if I had to answer your question one way or the other, I would say I would prefer probably somebody who's going to be able to make 9 out of 10 really quality pressure dinks.
Yeah. Interesting. And obviously making 10 offensive dinks in a row isn't easy either. So yeah, it's definitely a skill you need to develop.
Yeah. So what do you feel like you need to work on in your doubles game to get to be beating Ben in doubles?
Yeah, I feel like I make a lot of progress between every tournament I play, and then I go play match, and I think progress and practice lacks when you go to a tournament. I call it like a 3-month lag, and I used to talk about that with my tennis students. If I am teaching you something on your forehand and you do it so well in practice for 2 weeks, doesn't mean you're going to be able to do it in that tournament on the 3rd weekend. So, I feel like all the stuff I've been working on in doubles the last 6-7 months, it's starting to catch up. Obviously, like hand speed is something that's huge at the pro level. I do feel comfortable dinking. I feel like I can, stay in a long dink rally. I feel like I can reset. Obviously, my drives are good. So I would say maybe hand speed is the biggest thing I need to work on. But, I feel like I'm making progress every week, that's what my main focus is right now, is just to continue to get better.
Well, we've had this conversation probably 4 or 5 times on the podcast, and everybody's got a little bit different of an answer. So you're primarily, you mentioned a singles player, but I'm sure you did phenomenally in doubles as well. But it seems like singles was kind of your focus, at least through high school. When are we going to see specialization in pickleball?
People ask me that all the time, and I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be known as a single specialist. I would love for my doubles to be caught up on the same level as my singles, but I can't imagine a world in 3, 4, 5 years that people are grinding all 3 events. I mean, right now the singles game is so hard. I think it's the hardest event when you look at the amount of players coming in and all these people that come from tennis are automatically good at singles. So it makes it so hard to win a singles event. And if it keeps getting harder in 3 years, I just feel like there will be singles specialists at that point. It's hard to say. Obviously, pickleball changes so much, but yeah, I don't want to be that guy, but I think eventually there will be that.
For sure. Well, singles is also very much a leading indicator to double success right now, right? Everybody who seems to break through to singles breaks through in doubles 6 months later.
That's what I keep hearing. That's what I'm crossing my fingers for.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at it. I mean, even somebody like JW kind of broke through in singles first and then doubles.
Yeah.
His were a little bit closer together, but Jaume, who's winning medals. Even back in the day, Tyson was a singles player first. Me, I was winning singles stuff far before I was winning any double stuff. Long before you even picked up a pickleball paddle, Chris. Don't worry, I'm not coming for you.
Spencer, you would crush me. I have no doubts about that.
I think. All right. Here's a fun one. If I get to spin serve and we play tomorrow, who wins?
You would win for sure. It's funny because when I started pickleball, I said like 2 years ago in October, and that was still the last like few months of the spin serve. And I was gonna play a tournament that year. Like I played for like a month, and I was like, "Oh, I'm ready." And someone told me that the spin serve was gonna be outlawed like by that January, and I was like, "Oh, that like I'm gonna wait till January. That there's no way I'm gonna go play these guys." I like couldn't get it back. There's a guy I practice with. He's a great guy, and he used to crush me with the spin serve. And now we play singles, and I win most of the time. But yeah, I couldn't get it back.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm gonna stick to that then.
Yeah.
Once they bring the spin serve back, I'm back.
Right. You're all in.
All in.
Yeah, no, best thing to ever happen to pickleball was that thing being outlawed.
Yeah.
Oh, give me a break.
Like people talk about the serve now. Like I'm trying to rib my serve as hard as I can. I don't know. I've heard some people talk about like a bounce serve eventually or something, but I feel like the rules of pickleball are just going to keep changing. That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is. I think it's a huge mistake to assume that this is a solved game that doesn't need any changing.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if you're going to change around baseball, which has been around for forever, if you're going to change around the rules of tennis still, right? Even that now, all of the majors within the last few years have all implemented tiebreakers.
So how do you feel about scoring? That's an interesting question. Like APP singles plays rally scoring. Do you think that that's something that I don't know that PPA would ever go to that, but what do you feel about that?
I do like it. I like the simplicity of it. I think it kind of, I'm not sure how I feel about it quite yet in singles. I think that it changes the dynamic of singles more than it actually changes the dynamic of doubles.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because in singles, when you are serving, it's somewhat of a neutral spot, especially for somebody like you.
Yeah, I would say disadvantage serving. I mean, I'd rather be
so
sure.
Okay, so even somebody like you, you'd rather be you. All right, it's 20-20 in a match, and the next point wins, right? You'd rather be serving or returning than
I'd rather be returning for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I do think it changes the dynamic of singles more than it actually changes the dynamic of doubles. But as long as we're playing, basically an entire bracket in a given day, you can't have a 2-hour match in the middle of the day and
but the rally scoring is so short. Like, so I played APP last week. The top 4 seeds get a bye. It's a 32 draw, so I get a bye to the round of 16. We played 2 out of 3 rally scoring to 15. My first match, I mean that's quick. That goes in longest 40 minutes. So I played my first match. It's maybe 20 minutes. Second match, maybe 25. The third match goes 3 games. It's 30 minutes. So I'm done for the day. I don't play again until Sunday, and I played maybe an hour and a half. So I think it's too quick. I think side out scoring maybe is too long, and rally scoring is too quick. So there's no perfect answer, but
yeah, I would probably like to see some manipulation of the games, right? If we're doing 2 out of, or if we're doing traditional scoring, maybe we actually go to 3 out of 5 games to 7 or something, or 3 out of 5 rally scoring games to 15. It would be crazy, right? But it eliminates, okay, somebody made a big run in one game, this game's over, right? Like 2 out of 3, even though that match can be 2 hours, it can also be a little bit too quick if somebody's hot for 15 minutes.
For sure.
That's interesting.
That's like, I think rally scoring set an equalizer because it's so quick. Like, I feel like I'm the best player playing on APP singles right now, but I feel like I could lose to anyone because, if they hit 6 passing shots in a row, like, what are you going to do? The match is over before you know it.
And rally scoring impacts that even more in singles, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, what would you do?
As far as scoring?
Yeah.
I side out scoring. I'm a huge fan of it. I think I have an interesting opinion on like even tennis scoring. College goes to no ad because they want to be on TV. Pickleball, we're going to rally scoring because it's quicker, so you're more likely to be on TV. But I don't think you change a sport just to be on TV. Like if people are fans of the sport, they're going to watch it. And if people are interested and engaged on a TV network, they're going to watch it, whether it's 40 minutes or 20 minutes. So I know that's probably not what the production people think and everything, but as an athlete, that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to disagree with you there. I think our paychecks depend on this being good for TV.
Yeah.
So
True.
Which like, I also think like we are very well due for playing different rules at the pro level than the amateur level.
Yeah.
Amateur level, I don't know what's actually better for players. Maybe it's rally scoring, maybe it's side out scoring, but I would say pretty certainly for television, I think that rally scoring is, first off, it does artificially make matches a little bit closer, and you have some more drama, right? And so if you could say you have one scoring system that has less drama, one scoring system that has more, like you're going to gravitate towards more drama for TV. And then the other thing is just the predictability of it, right? Like, we don't necessarily have predictability in tennis, but you most of the time do in baseball, basketball, football, soccer. You can be there for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah.
Right. Pickleball, you could have a 20-minute match. You could have a 2.5 hour match.
Yeah.
That's really tough.
I watched the women's doubles final, or maybe it was semifinal on APP last week. It was 0-0 for 25 minutes. I mean, they sided out, I think, like 15 times at least. Like it was wild. So yeah, when you look at it that way, it makes sense. I see both arguments for sure.
I actually think that a scoring system more like tennis could be very interesting. Like, what if we had like small games to 5,
sets,
no ads?
It makes sense. The argument you hear is with volleyball, and they went from side out scoring to rally scoring, but I would say most volleyball rallies at the professional level are, it's not serve and then the point's over when the team returns it. Whereas singles pickleball is like that. It's 3, 5, maybe 7 shots if you're really scrambling. So it's just so quick. That's how I feel about it. It's just too quick.
Yeah. No, I feel relatively passionate about it for doubles. I think it's the way forward, but singles is a very different
because
game.
Doubles, there's not going to be any rallies that end on a third shot. I mean, there shouldn't be, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So.
This episode is also brought to you by Pickleball Match Tracker, which is just a great gift for pickleball junkies. The Pickleball Match Tracker is brought to you by Adams Media and Trey Sizemore, who's the founder of pickleballhut.com. And it includes like the history of the game, glossary of pickleball slang and terms. It's got sections to record scores, rate skills, capture intricacies of match day like wind, weather, challenging plays, and match highlights. And it's just a great gift for the pickleball junkie in your life, so check them out. It's the Pickleball Match Tracker. You can look at the link in the description or on the screen here.
Yeah.
All right, Chris. So you're on this podcast because you've had some breakout wins recently. Really starting to establish yourself at PPA Orange County Cup. You, on your way to gold, beat Yates Johnson, Dylan Frazier, your boy Grayson, Ben Johns, and Fed Staksrud. Do you think, like, especially when it comes to a Dylan, a Ben, a Fed, do you feel like those wins are sustainable for you? Do you feel like you're in a spot now where you're more comfortable?
Yeah. I mean, I think I said earlier, like, I'm not going to go to a tournament if I don't feel like I can win. So, I'm going to take confidence and I feel like I can beat them every time. Whether that happens is a different story. They're obviously great players and, they have the ability to beat me as well. But when I step on the court against them, I have full confidence and I think I can win. And I think you have to, or else you're not going to.
You don't have to reveal your secrets, but playing against Ben and Fed, what are the strategies you're using? Like, what are the few things that you're really focusing on?
My biggest single strategy, and I don't think enough people do this, and some people get confused when I tell them, when you're returning, I think return to their strength. In men's singles, I think that's the forehand most of the time. So I'm returning forehand almost 95% of the time. And I've told even, people that I play that. So I'm not afraid to admit that or tell anyone that. So I'm going to return to their strength, and it opens up the rest of the court. I think too many times people in singles try to return to the weaker shot, which is usually the backhand and men's, like I said. So then your fourth ball is going to be to their best shot. Whereas if I return to the forehand, my fourth ball is going to be to their weaker shot. Then it just opens up the whole court.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think
okay.
a lot of
It's
times in
counterintuitive.
doubles as well, right? In doubles,
Yeah.
you say, all right, we want to pick on this person's forehand dink or this person's
Yeah.
backhand dink. Well, players are good enough where if you just give them a lollipop to that spot, like they're not going to miss, and they're going to be still looking for that
Yeah.
shot.
And the court
Something
is
in tennis.
small. I mean, it's not a big court. Like, so people are able to find their strengths really easily. So isolating their strength and then their weakness is that's what I try to do in singles.
For sure.
Mhm.
With that return of serve, if you're returning to me and I want to hit a forehand, I can find a forehand
Yeah.
pretty much regardless.
And an inside-out
But-
forehand is so hard to read. I think it's the hardest shot on the court to read. You look at Tyson, if he's on the left side of the court hitting a forehand, he can hit it one of like 5 spots past you. Whereas if he's hitting a backhand, he's going to do one of maybe 2 or 3 things max, and only one of them can hurt you. So,
Yeah. So that's a good tip for the listeners at home. You got to open up your opponent's weakness.
Yeah.
You can't just go to it with nothing.
yeah, you got to
You
open it
have
up to the
to-
strengths, I think.
Definitely.
All right. And then, so mentioning Dylan, Ben, Fed, of those opponents, for you personally, who's the toughest to play against? They're kind of top 3 right now.
I mean, out of those 3, I would say, I would still say Ben. I think his variety is crazy. He can do so much stuff with the ball, and he can hurt you from a lot of spots on the court. If he gets to the net and we're playing cat and mouse, I'm going to lose that point 90% of the time. So I have to keep him back. But that also puts a lot of pressure on me to hit deep returns and deep forwards. So I would say Ben. I think my toughest match of the tournament was Grayson, and not just because I'm friends with him, but I think those tennis guys, they're brutal. I mean, they can hurt you from anywhere. Like, if I don't hit a deep return, they're going to rip a passing shot by me. And, you can get hot in singles and have 5 good minutes and hit 8 good passing shots, and the match is over. So that's, for me personally, that's my opponent that I like playing the least is a former big tennis player that can just rip forehands and rip backhands.
Yeah.
Who wins in tennis between you and Grayson?
I don't know. We actually tried to play tennis a few days ago, and we weren't able to get on court, but it'd be a fun match. I would love to see a tennis tournament with all these pickleball guys. Put like 15
Yeah, I'm
of us
sitting that one out.
and see who wins.
Yeah, who do you think wins that tournament?
I don't know. There's a lot of good players. I mean, obviously Jack would win, but if you
Yeah. All right, Jack doesn't count. Neither does.
you got to take him out of the
Sam
equation.
Cleary.
I feel like I was a great tennis player. I know Grayson was a great tennis player. I'm sure a lot of the PPA guys that I don't know as well, I'm sure they were really good players. So I think it'd be fun to watch.
Yeah.
So are you planning to continue grinding APP, or are you looking at PPA now like, okay, this is where I'm at. I should be competing against the top guys week in, week out. And how are you thinking about
I mean, my goal
APP?
right now is to beat the best players in the world. But it's also to get better. That's my number one focus right now. And I think the more matches I can play, the better I'm going to get. So playing APP and PPA is working out really well for me right now. The more matches I can get. So, you look at like Zane or whoever, all these guys that have been around forever, they played 10 times more pickleball matches than me. So to isolate myself on one tour or the other is, it's not worth it for me right now. So I just want to get as many matches as I can.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, it's nice to see
And-
different players. You can learn something from every different player you play from. You can pick something up from, okay, Ben does this really well. Dylan does this really well. Will Howells does this really well.
Yeah, and there's so many upcoming players on APP Tour right now that play different styles or, might hit some different shots. So seeing different looks is huge, I think.
Going back to what we were talking about earlier, so I do think that we've seen a lot of people break through in singles and then they transition to doubles. And it's almost like playing singles and getting good at singles first creates an easier gateway to then get a better partner, have a better chance, get more reps at higher level in doubles. So you've obviously broken out in singles. You're trying to make waves in doubles, but like, what are a few of the things that you're working on for your doubles game right now? Like, okay, I got to get better at these things in order to compete at the same level on
Going back
doubles
to
as I
what,
can.
I mean, you just said, but I think doing well and having good results is a gateway to getting better partners. And I think that's a huge part of doubles. So, if I play with someone that's maybe a little bit below my level and we play, Zane or whoever that are maybe a little bit above my level in doubles, we're going to lose that match every time. But if I play someone a little better than me and we're equal, then, that's when I think you can start to win. So that's what I'm hoping singles opens that up for me. And, I think it's going to start to. But as far as like specific strategy, I think I said like my counters, I need to work on just getting to the net every single time, not overhitting. I like to hit big, obviously, in singles, but I know in doubles it doesn't work out. But then you see that ball that's, chest level and you want to rip it. So I think just patience and shot selection are huge. And that's definitely what I'm working on right now.
Yeah. All right. Question about DUPR at the pro level. So a lot of amateurs obsess over DUPR. So we've got a tournament this weekend in Austin. A lot of people are emailing like, is this going to be tracked in DUPR, whether they want it to be or don't? But they care so much about how that number is moving up or down. Once you're established playing pro, this is a question for both of you. Do you care what your DUPR is, or is it? I mean, obviously it matters more what your results are, but like, to what degree are you caring about how your DUPR is moving and how it ranks relative to other players?
I mean, I think DUPR is a great way to gauge yourself. I don't have any affiliation with them or anything, but so I don't really care what my DUPR is. It doesn't have any effect on my seeding for a tournament. It doesn't have an effect on who I play first round. If I'm a 6-point whatever DUPR and the other person's a 10th higher than me, I'm not like, oh, I'm going to lose to them because they're a little higher than me. I don't really look at that. So, I look at my DUPR and I know what it is, but I don't really necessarily care what it is. It's just a way to gauge other players, I would say.
Okay.
I would say that, like, I think at a certain point you don't care. It's not a metric that's super important to pro players. I would say the time where it might be important is actually in MLP drafting, right?
Right.
That's probably the only time where it actually can potentially have an impact. And it's one of probably 5 variables that goes into it. But if you're looking at 2 completely equal players and one has a DUPR of 6.5 and the other has a DUPR of 6.55, everything else being equal, you're probably going to go with the higher person. So I would say it's like, it's one thing on the resume for a pro player that might be on the borderline of getting picked. And I'd say it doesn't even really matter for Premier. It's more of the challenger players that there's a little bit less information on.
Would you say
do you think
maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago when MLP first started and there was less information about players, it was more relevant than now? Because I feel like even every single challenger level player now plays tons of tournaments. Everyone knows them. So I don't know if you feel like their DUPR still matters as much, but
actually I think it didn't, because there were less players than MLP in the first year, right? You only had 16 guys and 16, or actually I think it was maybe 16 guys and 16 females year one. So DUPR was still a thing. Yeah. But I think the last person picked was Rob Nunnery, who wasn't picked because of his DUPR. Colin Johns went before him, wasn't picked because of his DUPR. I don't think there was anybody picked in that first draft because of their DUPR. In 2022, possibly towards the end. So I think it's always been kind of if there was Premier and Challenger in 2021, the first year that MLP was a thing, DUPR would have mattered so much because these players weren't as well known. But since there were only 16 on the men's side and 16 on the women's side, it really actually didn't. But if we were picking the same amount of players, it definitely would have. There's a great example of the Mad Drops. The Mad Drops picked last year for Challenger this guy who had a phenomenal DUPR. I think it was Jordan Kinney got picked to the Mad Drops and got dropped right away. I mean, he played. I didn't see anything like it, but he was not great, but he had a super high DUPR.
Yeah, because I know before the algorithm maybe was as set as it is now, you could play like a 5-0 tournament and dominate everyone and be like a 6-8 DUPR, which now I don't think is the case.
Yeah. So my dad's still clinging on to a pretty high DUPR from when we played together.
Yeah.
I think that's probably fallen off. It was like a year and a half ago that he was still like, yeah, I'm like a 6.0. I'm not playing anymore.
Damn, that's pretty good. 6.
Mm-hmm. And he's probably at 4 or 5 now, but
yeah. I think you guys would be surprised at how many owners were relying on nothing other than DUPR because they had no other insight as recent as the 2023 draft at the beginning of the year.
there are probably some. Yeah, there are probably some that didn't
Yeah.
do their due diligence or didn't know.
But now everybody's way more savvy. They're watching tape. Even if a player is like a high upside pick with not a lot of footage out there, competing on PPA or APP, like people are scrounging for YouTube clips, and the GMs are really starting to dedicate like a good amount of time to this analysis, and it's definitely changed in the last, I would say, really just the last year. The DUPR just became less significant in terms of just the Major League Pickleball draft.
So do you think that, like Lane Sleeth, I know her, so I feel like I can say this. She played tennis at OU. She was an amazing tennis player. Gets picked up without playing, hardly any pickleball. Do you think that will continue to happen, or do you think that that'll go away?
I think there's a good chance of that continuing to happen in the Challenger League, where you're just completely betting on somebody that you could potentially hit big on and have for 2+ years. Lane is the antithesis to what we were talking about DUPR. I don't know if she even had a DUPR
I don't think
going
she
into.
did.
She had been playing for 6 weeks before this, so
she's playing
before
great.
the draft.
And it worked out well for them. I think
it did.
I think she has a good winning percentage, as far as I know. So
yeah, so I think in your 4th round of Challenger, I think that the incentive structure is such that you should just take a home run swing, basically, because if it doesn't work or it doesn't look like it's going to work, that person is relatively easily replaceable in the next shuffle draft. And also, you're trying to be a 1 through 4 team to get promoted to Premier.
Yeah.
If you're the 5th best team, doesn't matter. So you'd rather
take a risk.
Rather strike out a bunch,
but
also have the potential of the home run than just hitting a bunch of singles in Challenger, especially.
Yeah, it makes sense.
All right, so we can wrap with this, Chris. Is there any part of you that's like, I should be campaigning for to get yourself out there and like talking to GMs and stuff to get drafted?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously have talked to some GMs and I've talked to some teams, and I felt like I'm missed out on the draft by just a handful of spots. Someone that was maybe willing to take that home run pick or however you want to call it on me at that time. But yeah, it's tough because I almost got picked up with an injury a few weeks ago, and it didn't. But I think that for me right now, like, I just want to get better, and I would rather wait and be playing MLP next year or the year after, however long it takes, than get picked up now and I don't think I'm ready, or the GMs don't think I'm ready, and then you go to an event and you don't do well, and then you're not getting picked up again. So I'm just gonna wait my chance and continue to focus on me and my game.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. Let me know if we can help campaign for you.
Yeah, sure. Anyway, I'll take any campaigning you can do.
All right, cool. Zane, you got anything else?
No, this has been great getting to know you a little bit.
I think,
and yeah, I'm buying Chris Haworth stock for sure.
Let's go.
Cool. Thanks for coming on, Chris.
All right, thank you guys.
Pickleball.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, rather had fun, yeah.